Hi, everyone. Welcome back to our Mental Training Thursdays. I am Erin Rubenking. I'm the Associate Director here at Psychological Health and Performance, and I'm going to be joining Bob as we go into these next few weeks. And so I'm really excited. Today, our topic is refuge in the face of recent events. And so if you saw our Mental Lift Monday, today we're just going to dive a little bit into it. And we have a question to kick us off. So I'm going to turn it over to Chris for the student athlete question.
Witnessing the events in the Capitol last week really disturbed me. I've been struggling to fall asleep, can't stop scrolling my Insta feed about it, and really don't feel motivated overall. Is this normal or is this just me?
Yes, I mean, I think this is such a great question, and I know I've been talking to a lot of people about this, and I do just want to say this is absolutely normal. The events at the Capitol that we all witnessed are deeply disturbing and were very deeply disturbing to witness. And so in all reality, I think I'd be a little more concerned if people didn't have a reaction to it in whatever way that may look. And so one thing to keep in mind is that, yes, this is normal to have these reactions. It may show up differently for different people. And so for some people, their reaction might be anger. Others, it might be sadness, fear, uncertainty. And I think that that's a big one, especially in a time where things are already so uncertain. And so just to be aware that it might show up differently for different people, and it might be a mixture of all of those things and kind of cycling through it. So absolutely, this is normal. And then the other piece that I did want to mention is that depending on parts of people's identities, they may feel what we talk about as re-traumatized from previous marginalization. And so if someone is part of a group that has been marginalized over time, seeing events like the event that we saw at the Capitol can be re-traumatizing. And so just these are things to be aware of, that it's absolutely normal to experience these feelings, difficulty sleeping, all of those things that Chris, you mentioned in the question. So then what do we do with it? I mean, I think the first piece of it is recognizing what you're experiencing. And so even just in that question, it sounds like some good recognition has taken place. The other piece that I do want to just highlight is to really be able to pause and end what you don't need right now. And so I know for many people that's looking at, social media or having the news on constantly. While it's important to stay informed, it's also important to take breaks from that. And so it might be limiting the time that you watch the news or limiting your social media interaction. I also think that this can show up as setting some healthy boundaries with other people. It's normal to be talking about this stuff, and we also need breaks from those conversations too. And so let's say you're having a day where it's just so exhausting and someone wants to talk to you a little bit more about what's going on. It is totally normal and healthy to say, I don't have the capacity to talk about this right now. Love to talk about it at another time, but just not today. So I think that's a big piece of this. The other part that I wanted to touch on was really being able to focus on some basic needs. And so in this time right now, there's so much going on that is outside of our control. And so sometimes it is helpful to just slow down and focus on what do you actually have control over. And that might be, how do you make sure you're nourishing yourself? How do you make sure you're connecting with people who are supportive and you're getting sleep, you're moving your body, all of the things that we know can be helpful during these times. And then the other piece I just want to reiterate is being able to use the resources that are available to you when you're ready. And people are going to be ready at different times, and they may not be ready right now to use different resources, whether that is our services or other resources. But just know that there are a lot of resources out there that if and when you're ready, we are happy to help you get connected. So I'm going to turn it over to Bob for any thoughts he might have on all of this.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Erin. And my heart goes out to the student athlete and what you named. I think there's a lot of courage in being able to name how events around us, which are traumatic, which stem from, as you named, Erin, how it can land on us in our different identities, stemming from white body supremacy, anti-Semitism, witnessing that. It shows up in our bodies, it shows up in how we feel, how we navigate the world around us. This space, Mental Training Thursday, has been about training, and I think during crisis in particular, we fall back into our training, we fall back into what practices we've brought for ourselves. And so I think that's what we want to bring to you today, are practices that can really help ground and find safety during times of collective trauma like this, and how it uniquely lands on each of us. So I so appreciate the student athlete bringing that to us. We're going to jump into this practice right now, which is something that we call dropping anchor. So if you can think about, an event, recent events, what happens, for many of us in different ways, we can become unpaired from our physical bodies, from what's happening in front of us. And so the intention behind this activity is really to come back to a sense of having home within ourselves, to having a container in an environment that can really hold us up for all those emotions and reactions that we're having at this time. So right at the outset, before we jump into this, I want to give people permission to do this the way that works for you. If you want to lie down, do this, because I think in many ways we want to have as much contact with the earth as that serves you as possible to hold you up in times of real turbulence. If you feel like sitting, great. We're not going to use the breath for this. I know the breath can actually be re-triggering for folks and traumatizing in some ways. So this is just using our physical sensations to come into the moment. And if you're comfortable, you can feel free to close your eyes for the beginning of this. And I'm going to try to do this with you all in that spirit. And I just invite everybody at the beginning to set a wish for yourself in whatever emotional storms you may be facing right now. And just letting that wish drop in. And holding that throughout this practice. So when we're facing any sort of a storm or turbulence or crisis, we really want to come back into our physical being. So our first part of this practice of dropping anchor is really touching the earth. So first, if you can just push your feet into the floor below you, pushing them down, feeling the texture of the floor beneath your feet, the sturdiness of the floor. Now really pressing back into, if you're sitting, into the chair that you're sitting in, or lying down, just taking in all the surface contact from the earth below you. Just being held up. Not having to do anything else except be held by the furniture and the earth beneath you. Slowly press your fingertips together, kind of bringing intentions to the contacts in the hands, feeling the firmness, kind of even holding the hands in a way that feels comforting for you, maybe rubbing them together, gently kind of rolling the shoulders, moving the arms in a way that feels effortless and comforting. And just taking a moment in to acknowledge that there may be storms here, there may be thoughts, feelings, emotions around what has happened and what is coming. And as we can acknowledge what's here internally, there's also a body around that, a body that you can move, you can control, you can come back to. So just anchoring into any parts of the body right now that really feel safe and comforting for you. And at your own pace, slowly opening the eyes and anchoring into this moment. So even looking around the room that you're in, I think it's helpful to notice what's behind you. Really, we kind of look back, seeing any items in the space in the room around you that really give you that sense of safety and home. And then anything that you are hearing in this moment. Just seeing how sounds come and go, both in the room and outside of the room. And as we've kind of anchored into the body, anchored into the moment, if you want, you can, for this last part of the practice, just gently close your eyes if it feels helpful, or just drop in these questions for yourself as seeking refuge during times of crisis and turbulence. Just asking yourself, what do I need? What do I really need? And just looking ahead maybe at the next 24 hours. Whether it's a sense of security, relaxation, play, connection. And then just dropping in one more question. What can I let go of? What's not serving me right now? And as we close this practice, just giving yourself a sense of gratitude for having your back in this moment, for being at home with yourself with what shows up. Noticing any difference in sensations from the beginning to the end. And whenever you're ready, we can come back and join our conversation.
Thank you, Bob, for that exercise. I think it's a great exercise to be able to kind of come back to ourselves and ground ourselves in the moment, especially when there's so much chaos going on around us. So we just want to close out today and remind everyone to join us next week to continue to train ways to find healing and strength in the face of the current events. And if you do have any questions on this week's topic or anything for next week, please email Bob at robert.deal@colorado.edu. And then each week we'll use the first few minutes to answer some questions. And I wanted to just end today's exercise with a quote, and especially thinking of Dr. King Day coming up on Monday, we thought that this was an appropriate one given everything going on. So the quote is, "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere." Dr. Martin Luther King. So thank you all for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you next week.